everyone, and welcome to Valentine video number 9. So I stamped this little Pure Innocence Love is in the Air image onto some Cocoa Quality cardstock with my Memento Tuxedo Black ink. And then I'm starting with her skin as always. So I started with my E50 marker, and then I went in with my E21 to add the darker areas, and then E13 as my darkest. And then blended that out with the E21, and then finally went back with my E50 and blended everything all together. And then for her little cheeks, just some R20, and since the marker was still wet, it was already kind of blending out anyway, but I just took the E50 again and blended a little bit more just so there wasn't a harsh line. And then for her hair, I wanted to give her kind of reddish looking hair, so I started with YR21 and then added some YR23 and then finally some YR27. And because the 27 is so much darker, I went back and blended a little bit. But usually with these images, I don't do a whole lot of fancy blending because they don't have very much hair. So you can kind of get away with keeping things a lot simpler. But I just kind of went back and forth with the colors until I was happy with how it looked. And then I wanted to color her little outfit pink. So I started off with R20 and just colored in her little pigtail holders there, and her dress and her shoes. Just laid down the color, nothing fancy. And then added the R22. And then finally I chose R14 as my darkest because those two blend together really, really well. So I got that down, and then I blended that out a bit with the R22 again. And then finally took my R20 and blended quite well so that it got a nice little gradient there. So it got darker near the bottom and in the shaded areas. And then finally I took my BG Quadruple Zero and just lightly added that onto her socks just to make them look more white. And then for the shading, I turned the image sideways so it was actually facing me because I have a tendency to make the ground area completely crooked because I'm filming everything like off to my left side. So faced the image actually towards me just to make it a little bit easier. And yeah, laid down, this time I decided to go with the cool grays instead of the warm. So I went with C3 as my first, and then took C1 to blend it out, and then finally C00 to really blend everything well. And then I grabbed my colorless blender just to make sure everything faded out completely to white and to soften it all. So once I was done with that, I decided to add a little bit of pattern to her dress with the colorless blender, and by doing that I just dabbed it to make little polka dots. So you can see it just pushes the color away from it and in deeper into the cardstock. And then if you want to like them even more, I just went over the same little dots again once they had dried with the colorless blender just to whiten them even more. So we got a cute little pattern going on there. So I had die cut that with one of my Circle Stacks dies, and then I grabbed, this is the negative dot alphabet set, and I hadn't taken them apart yet just because I have no way to store them, so I just left them all like connected, and I wanted to cut out a bunch of letters. I didn't care about the circles, I wanted just the letters, so I just am leaving it die face up. I always cut die face down, but for this it works to cut die face up, cut all the pieces of cardstock for the letters I wanted, laid them out, and then was able to just run it through once and get all the letters I need for this card with one pass. So super, super fast and simple. And yeah, I'm spelling out my oldest daughter's name. I thought it'd be fun to make them each a little Valentine card, and I like to make little personalized cards for them a lot, just because for whatever reason my kids seem to have the names that you can never find in those stores that sell personalized, keychains, anything. My kids' names are never there. We have never once seen either of their names on those things. So it's kind of a good thing, but kind of a bad thing, because when you're little you just think that's cool, but it just gives me an excuse to make personalize things for them. So now on to the rest of the card. I inked up the typewriter text background stamp with the bubblegum ink and just stamped it along the bottom of the card. And then I decided to grab the little heart stamp that's from the Love is in the Air set, because that's kind of what she's supposed to be doing, is like she's tossing all these little hearts in the air. So I inked that up with the bubblegum ink as well and just stamped that on the top of the cardstock. And then I had this strip of black cardstock, so I just adhered that into place just to kind of give it a little bit of a divider between the text and the little hearts. And then I had some pink ribbon. Oh, I rounded the top edges too with my corner chomper, just to give a little bit more definition. And then I had some pink ribbon in my stash that was pretty close to this bubblegum color. So I wrapped that around the card front and tied it off, and then moved it over quite a bit because this circle takes up quite a bit of space. And then use a whole bunch of dimensionals just to pop up this main image a little bit, just to give it a little extra something. So got everything into place, and then I want to lay out all my letters before I actually adhere them to make sure they fit the way I want them to. So yeah, that's why I kind of like that I stamped those little hearts, because it's like the letters and the hearts are kind of all floating together. So got all the letters laid out, and then I just took my Tombow Monomulti and put some on a bit of a scrap of cardstock and took my little stylus tool to just dab the glue on, since these letters are so small. I could have just used the Tombow Monomulti like right from the tube. It's not that difficult, but this just works a lot faster when you're adhering multiple letters and they're so small like this. So I started with the middle letters to adhere them so that things were kind of centered, and then just worked my way to either side. That's all there was to it. So I wanted to add another sentiment to the front. So I grabbed my Pure Innocence Guess Who Loves You stamp set, because it had the sentiments that I wanted to use, and inked that up with my Memento Tuxedo Black and stamped it onto a strip of cardstock, and then cut apart all the words, which I've seen this done on so many other people's cards, and for me it's always been difficult to do that. It just kind of irritates my OCD, but I like the look of it. So I sucked it up for this card and cut them all apart, and I think it looks really cute. It's just, yeah, I had a really hard time doing this. So got those cut apart and adhered into place, and then I'm going to adhere this to my white card base. People have been asking why I've been using my Monomulti more lately. It's just preference. Sometimes I already had it out sitting on my desk, so I decided to use it for the whole card. That and my ATG, I need to get more adhesive for it. So once it starts running a little low, I get like anxiety. So I've been using a lot of Monomulti. So anyway, I used my Wink of Stella pen on the letters just to give them a little bit of shimmer. And then on the inside of the card, I grabbed another piece of bubblegum cardstock and inked up the bottom again with the typewriter text background, just a smaller part for that. And then I grabbed a little strip of black cardstock and another sentiment from the Guess Who Loves You set. And then I use my little embossing buddy just to get some powder in the cardstock so that the embossing powder doesn't cling to anything else. And I inked up the stamp with Versamark ink, or usually I use like a white pigment ink, but it both work just fine, just something that dries slowly. And then some detail white embossing powder, and then heat that up with my embossing tool so that it melts all the powder. So I've got a nice little white, crisp white sentiment on the black, and then I always use my fingers to wipe off that powder residue because it just looks gross. But yeah, once it's cooled off, you just wipe it off and it's good to go. So I'm going to adhere that strip as the division between the text and the rest of the cardstock, and then flip her over and use my scissors just to trim off those extra little pieces there, and then round those top corners again with my little corner chomper. And once I'm done that, I'm going to adhere that to the inside of my card, and that's all there is to it. So as always, I will put a link below the video to my blog post, and then I'll have links to the supplies used. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching and subscribing and liking my videos, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!